Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And Ubisoft has gotten themselves into really just a huge mess by this point. That honestly, I'm not entirely sure if they can just simply dig themselves out of. I mean, they're going to attempt to with a significant delay that sparked waves online today. But when I look at the overall situation, I almost kind of wonder if this is the end days for Ubisoft as we currently know them. You know, could a merger acquisition be on the horizon? Because their leadership has really messed up to the point that their future appears to be in real jeopardy. So we're going to get into all of that today, as well as a confusing message from Sony and their newest game announcement, Ghost of Yotei. Let's just go and get right into things, though, starting off with some Level 5 news. We actually just got a new Level 5 game announcement, which brings my heart a lot of joy. They've been absent from the West for quite some time. I still remember the days when they were just absolutely killing it with games like Ni no Kuni. They had Professor Layton, and of course, the Yokai Watch series. And that's what's really interesting about their newest game, Holy Horror Mansion. They're saying that this is the next concept for Yokai Watch, whatever that means. I'm not entirely sure if this is set in the same world or maybe it's just some kind of spiritual successor, but either which way, you can clearly see the similarities between the two. Much like the Yokai Watch series, it's all about ghosts that only you can see, and in this case, it's through a special camera. Now, it's kind of hard to say just how similar they are, though, just because, you know, they didn't really show too much gameplay, but the other interesting part about this announcement is in how they announced its supported platforms. They mentioned that it's a secret, and that it'll come quote-unquote soon, but not necessarily that soon. So, if I were a betting man, I'd say that they're probably referring to the Nintendo Switch successor, simply considering their history with Nintendo. And for that matter, they also delayed Deca Police into 2026. Now, fans are already speculating that it would be a Switch successor game anyways, alongside the next Professor Layton game, and I think this pretty much confirms it. I imagine this delay will be to overhaul it for the Switch successor. Now, we also got a new Xbox controller announcement, and I mean, you can say what you want about Xbox and how they handle their consoles, but I mean, when it comes to their controllers, they are second to none. Their design team is absolutely amazing at what they do, and they just added a new transparent collar to their collection. You can see it here on screen. This is the Ghost Cypher Special Edition. It'll launch for $70 on October 8th. You can already pre-order it on the Microsoft Store if you want. But here's the really cool part about all this. If you want this as an Elite controller, you can actually design your own transparent Elite controller through their Xbox Design Labs website. I mean, I love the customization that they give their fans, but of course, you know, keep in mind that the price will be much higher if you go in this direction. The Elite controllers start out at $150, and depending on your specific design, it could go higher than that. If you still want to customize your own controller, though, you'll now have access to 6 different transparent options, which includes red, pink, purple, white, green, and blue. Now, personally, I really like the green myself in this case. Now, here's something that I think could potentially be very exciting if you like Capcom games. I mean, over the last 7 or so years, they have been an industry leader in how you should remake games. Look no further than the Resident Evil series that completely transforms them, or even if you look at something like the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, it might not necessarily be as big of a change compared to Resident Evil, but even still, it is a big upgrade over the original Xbox 360 PlayStation 3 game. So, I mean, they clearly know what they're doing when it comes to these remakes and remasters, and the good news here is that Capcom is currently gauging interest in more games like this. In a new survey for fans, they're asking, are there any particular series that you would like to see receive the deluxe remaster treatment? And you can see some of the options below, which includes Dino Crisis, Lost Planet, Devil May Cry, Power Stone, Resident Evil, Onimusha, Darkstalkers, and Okami. So, I mean, you know, there's just a ton of legendary games here that fans have been asking about for years. You know, they really can't go wrong with any of these franchises. But if I had to just pick one, I mean, I've been saying this for years anyways, but Dino Crisis is a no-brainer. You know, we don't really get a lot of good dinosaur games anymore, and even more so, just look at what Capcom has done with the Resident Evil remakes. I mean, I can only imagine just how special they could make a Dino Crisis remake by using the Resident Evil engine. I think that would be the perfect series to follow what they've done with the Resident Evil remakes, and Dino Crisis is still a very unique franchise all these years later. It might play similar to Resident Evil in some ways, but the premise itself is just very unique for the horror genre. So I just really feel like this is the move for Capcom to make. I think they could have a lot of success if they put some real effort into it the same way that they did with Resident Evil. But what do you all think? If you could only choose one game on this list, which one would you choose? Okay, so let's go and shift gears here and talk about Ubisoft. And they've really put themselves in a tight spot. They are facing some trouble, I'd say for a combination of different reasons. One is just kind of their design choices with their games. Some people might be getting a little sick of their copy and paste open world design. And then also, I mean, we can't ignore some of the recent controversial decisions that they've made when it comes to their games. Some people might want to bury their heads in the sand when it comes to these type of issues, but it is something that's currently happening, whether people want to admit to it or not. Now, regardless of what side you sit on, or whether or not you believe that this is a legitimate issue, or if some fans are just being absolutely ridiculous, that's completely up to you. But it's Ubisoft's comments that brings this topic to the forefront. Now, we'll get into all of that here in just a moment, but first let's go and quickly summarize what happened today. So Ubisoft delayed their biggest holiday release, Assassin's Creed Shadows. It was originally planned for October, but it's now been pushed to February 14th of 2025. And they more or less said that this is to further polish the game. Now, for my longtime followers, you all know me. I'm not against delays. If it's the best thing for a game to be a better final product, then hey, that's great, because I think that's also good for fans. But I also think that this is a very unique and bizarre situation. I think there's a lot more happening here behind the scenes than Ubisoft is willing to tell us about. I don't think that this is simply because they want to fix some bugs and things like that. In fact, they revealed some other information today that I find very telling. Not only did they confirm that Star Wars Outlaws did not meet expectations, but they're also launching an internal investigation and made this information public. They said, "I want to reaffirm that we are an entertainment-first company creating games for the broadest possible audience, and our goal is not to push any specific agenda. We remain committed to creating games for fans and players that everyone can enjoy." Then on top of that, Ubisoft also sent an internal email to their very own staff to remind them of this specific goal. Ubisoft's CEO told them, "I'd like to address the recent polarized coverage around our creative choices. We are an entertainment company. As such, our objective is not to endorse any specific agenda. Our mission has always been to entertain players and to enrich their lives with original and memorable experiences that resonate with a global audience." Now, the reason that this information is important to understand for this delay is because Assassin's Creed Shadows, much like Star Wars Outlaws, has been infested by controversy to the point that Ubisoft themselves had to issue an apology to their Japanese community. Now, I'm not going to get into the specific controversy. It's been well documented online. You either agree with it or you don't. That's up to you. But I will say this much. I think there are people online that wants to act like this is only a loud minority that talks a big game on social media. But you can look at the trailers for Assassin's Creed Shadows and see firsthand that the reaction has been largely negative. Its most recent trailer has 113,000 dislikes and still growing. And if you go back to its reveal 4 months ago, it has 581,000 dislikes. Now, if you want to act like that isn't a lot of people, you can simply bury your head in the sand. But Ubisoft's statement today essentially confirms that this issue is in fact impacting their bottom line. They wouldn't have addressed this topic unless it was hurting them financially, which you can clearly see in their stock prices, which continues to plummet. Now, to be completely fair here, that's probably caused by a combination of things, and not only because of their recent controversial choices alone. At the end of the day, though, I think Ubisoft is panicking. their future very well might hinge on the success of Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I don't think they're completely confident based on its reaction. My guess is that its pre-orders aren't reaching their internal expectations, and now they're kind of scrambling to get more positive feedback for its eventual launch. This, of course, includes some extra polish. It also includes a day one Steam release, and they're even departing from their traditional season pass model the fans have been complaining about for years and years. I think they're kind of hoping this will be enough to win people over. But honestly, I don't think this is going to save Shadows. This still doesn't fix the controversy itself. And like I said before, whether or not you agree with that controversy or not, that's completely up to you. But it is a very real thing. And it seems to be rampant enough that it has impacted this game. So, we'll see how all of this turns out in the long run. But let me know what you all think about this in the comments below. What do you think about this delay? Do you think it's simply just because they need more polish? Or do you think there's a little bit more happening behind the scenes like I currently believe? Now, one last thing that I want to talk about here, though, is the other game that's set in feudal Japan that was just announced yesterday at the PlayStation State of Play, Ghost of Yotei. Now, the number one question that I've seen online for Ghost of Yotei is, where exactly is Jin? Is there a possibility that he'll still get his own sequel in the future? And so far, it's been very difficult to gauge Sucker Punch's plans. Now, they did address this in, I'd say, kind of a confusing way in an interview with The Times. They told them that the Ghost of series will include at least one movie and other spin-offs. Now, based on that wording, that's led some fans to believe that Ghost of Yotei is simply a spin-off, and that kind of begs the question on how large Ghost of Yotei actually is, and if Ghost of Tsushima 2 is still on the table. At the same time, though, a lot of what they've described in various different posts, to me, it kind of comes off as them wanting to do an anthology series similar to what Ubisoft does with Assassin's Creed. And basically, that just means that they'll have standalone stories with different characters and different locations. Now, maybe they accidentally referred to it as a spin-off, which leans into why some of the messaging has been confusing for fans. And with that, I do hope they clarify this sometime in the near future. For the time being, though, the fact that they mentioned multiple other, in their words, spin-offs, I'm going in with the idea that this will be an anthology series with standalone stories. If you're a fan of Ghost of Tsushima, though, definitely let me hear what you think about that. Do you like this idea, or would you have just preferred them to have focused on Jin's story? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but as always, if you like this type of content, do make sure to hit that subscribe button. I am here every weekday, Monday through Friday, but until next time, peace out.